The Fearless Podcast, in a time of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Fearless Podcast. This is episode 54, and I am here with my beautiful wife.
Hello.
And Matt is supposed to be here, and he is going to be here. They are picking up our new herd bull, and we've been waiting for about a month to get our bull, and it's rained every single day for the past month, pretty much. And so we finally had a dry evening. So after church and after everybody in our community stopped by, they took off to get the bull. They're not back. So Matt might be jumping on here, but we're going to be talking about raising $1 million kids. And this was Matt's idea, which he'll hopefully be here to interject in the middle. And when we talk about $1 million children, we're not talking about their net worth, but we are talking about their net worth. And it was very interesting. You know, we had a gathering yesterday. We had a meetup, and it was our carniversary. And it was an awesome blessing. And there was probably about 80 people or so, lots of families, lots of kids. And it was very encouraging. And it was a neat community. We got to meet a lot of locals. And we want to thank all y'all for coming out and supporting the meetup. And make sure that you're on our email list. To get on our email list, you go to our website, you go all the way to the bottom, and you hit join the email list, and you put in your email. That puts you on the email list. Next month, we are tentatively scheduling it at Bob Wells Nursery at Sorella Farms in Mineola. And so we will give you the date. It's going to be a Saturday. And this last meetup, we usually say 10 to 12, but this last one went to like 2 or 3. So we'll probably just do like 10 to 3, something like that. I know more people said they would come if it was longer, because I think people trickle in and out. And for people that are driving further distances, you know, it makes it a little more worth the drive. So I totally get that. That makes sense. And it'll continue to grow and expand probably. And we'll do some classes and some teaching and different things like that. But this is all part of the process and creating community. And whether you're a carnivore and you want to talk about health, whether you're a homesteader and you want to talk about your animals, your critters, your garden, your soil biome, or whether you're a homeschooler and you want to talk about homeschooling. And hey, Valerie, it was great meeting you as well. Appreciate y'all making the drive. That's a commitment, and we appreciate it. And so we want to encourage everybody to come out. It's going to continue to grow.
And it's going to be air conditioned the next 3 months.
The next 3 months will be air conditioned, which helps in this Texas heat. So we will keep you posted on that. But in talking about this theme, raising $1 million kids, raising $1 million children, you know, I get admonished because people say kids are goats and children are your offspring. So I can take correction on that. So no. But this concept of raising $1 million children, one of the things I think that gets lost when you're training your child and you're raising your child up is this mediocrity, which is directly tied to the Prussian model of go to school so you can get a good job, right? And this whole idea of a job, I think jobs are great in the beginning to teach kids consistency, and also to teach them what a terrible job is like, so they'll hate it and they'll despise it and they'll never want to be stuck in that rut. There's a lot of great people working mediocre jobs,
but there's a lot of danger in those jobs too. Exposing them to the culture in those jobs, I would say, is very dangerous. You have to weigh that out.
And
when we were going to define what we're saying when we're saying $1 million kids, we're not saying net worth. We're saying that our goal is to raise exceptional children. So we were just saying $1 million just to whatever.
Well,
But
I mean, yeah.
exceptional children. So in that the value is not just monetary.
Sure.
Their value is hopefully eternal. Hopefully there's a spiritual value there, that you're raising these exemplary people as leaders for that next generation. That's what we're speaking to.
Well, and it's kind of like has a dual meaning, because part of raising and training and rearing your children, in my opinion, has an entrepreneurial cog to it that is quintessential and necessary. This way, and many people have done it this way successfully, and I see it as mandatory, in my opinion, just from my experience, for lots of different reasons. But as the father and as the patriarch and as the overseer, if you're instilling this into your boys and even into your little girls and young ladies, it gives them a sense of purpose, and it helps you focus their interests and their talents. And it also helps you monetize that, because you're preparing them for life. You're preparing them to be a productive proponent of society. And I think it's quintessential to do that and to model that at a young age. It revolves almost exclusively around entrepreneurialism. And that's anything from selling eggs to selling produce to, Big Tex. He was picking plums.
He's 9.
Yeah, he's 9, and he picked plums Saturday morning because he was going to sell them at the meetup, and I was like, yeah, and he didn't sell any of them, but it was the whole concept of like, hey, these are delicious, they're high value. These have a value. I can pick these and I can bring them and I can sell them.
Right.
And and that's just such a great mindset. Give them away or whatever, don't get hung up on.
I think he ended up giving away a whole bunch to the little kids at the end.
Yeah. And some people.
Did anybody pay for a plum?
No.
Okay.
Nobody purchased the plum.
Okay.
But and
it was still
they were
good
delicious.
idea. It was still a good idea.
But and don't get hung up on the money thing, but there's a lot to it. I'm an Austrian economist, and money does make the world go round. It is a modicum of exchange, and it's very important to teach that to your children, and so that they can appreciate it, so that they can function economically. And this is part of that, and to teach them the value of a greenback, of a fiat thingamabob, a dollar bill, whatever you want to call it.
I think it's really important for your boys, when you're raising boys and when you're raising girls. It's really important because it's going to teach them to have a very strong work ethic and to appreciate and be able to manage their money, and to budget their money, to respect money. Like, I think that it's really, really important to teach work ethic. And I think Joel Salatin talks a lot about this too, when he was raising his children, how he gave them paid things. So they had normal things that they weren't paid to do, right? Like clean up your dirty clothes off the floor, brush your teeth, right? Nobody's paying you to do that. But then there was always a list, I think he said, of like above and beyond jobs that were available. And he wasn't going to force anybody to do them. But if you wanted to earn money, these jobs are hanging there, and he could always add more to the list. And there was a dollar amount tagged to that job. So like if somebody wanted to, I did this a lot with our boys, our oldest boys, when they were young and they wanted to make money. They still laugh and remember about it, but I would give them a trash bag, and I would say, if you can go outside, because we had a lot of trash on this property when we moved here, so this was just always available to them. If you can fill up a whole trash bag with trash, I will give you $1. And they remember that. But as they got older, if you can mow the grass, or if somebody wants to weed eat, I always had an ongoing chore list, because during my pregnancies with the last 3 little ones, I had even more things added to the chore list of like, they weren't working outside the home yet at that point, the boys. So I would just put, mopping the floor, anything that would help me. I would rather pay them to do it than to hire like a maid to come into the house and clean the house, right? And it's teaching them like unction and to like, oh, I'm going to go do that. Boy, if I did this, this, and this, I could earn $10. That's good. And I got that from Joel Salatin. I did steal that from him.
Yeah, and it's great because allowance. That allowance was this new Dr. Spock concept that came to the surface when we were children, that never existed. Allowance didn't exist before. It was just like this kind of Prussian thing, rewarding for doing nothing. If you could not play video games or something, I don't know. I never really got the whole allowance thing. It just meant that you were like a smooch or something. Like you were leeching off your parents. Did you get an allowance growing up? No, of course not.
My dad did an allowance for us. I
didn't get an allowance. Like if I wanted money to spend, I had to work for it and earn it. Yeah, we worked like a man. Yeah, I didn't get an allowance. I'm not I'm not a commie.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots to do. It's endless with the things that there is to do in the house. So
Pure Prairie was asking about financial teachings. Becoming Your Own Banker by Arnell Sinash is an incredibly, it's a very easy to read book. It's very short, like 95 pages. And me and Matt are both currently applying those techniques. And I think that's a great resource. There's other resources that are okay. But, that's one that I can think of off the top of my head that we're currently implementing.
I know my friend in Indiana, she has her children during their last years of homeschool. She has them go through the financial who was it? It's Dave Ramsey. I know
you're going to say Dave Ramsey.
You're not a big Dave Ramsey fan. I know, but Financial Peace
for so many reasons. But anyway,
but just to kind of teach the boys how to set budgets, manage money, just the basics of like
Dave Ramsey go out if you've already been a financial crackhead. Dave Ramsey is good for people that have been financial crackheads. But as far as like if you started out pretty good, Dave Ramsey is rudimentary, and the stock market, in my opinion, is an absolute total scam. So telling anybody to invest in the stock market is like invest in a scam. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm just, that's not my thing.
And I think part of her question was like, how much oversight, how much training, or like parameters do we put on their business?
You'd be
and
surprised.
Things like that. Like
incredibly minimal.
Very, very minimal. Yeah. I mean, I think we just kind of take it as like a discipleship approach. So where we're here to guide them, to help them if we see that they are maybe overspending or being frivolous in something, then we're here, obviously, so we can give that input. Or, if they're teaching them to give, like at church, obviously they see my husband give, so they are led by example in that. Obviously they see a big importance on saving. They have goals that helps a lot. So I'm looking across the room, and every year at the end of the year before the new year, I have them sit down and take 10 minutes, 15 minutes and write out all of their crazy, crazy dream goals for the year. And
speaking of that list, so those lists are right over there on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And it is June. It's the first week of June. And if I went over there and read their top 10 goals to all y'all, almost all of those goals have already been reached.
Right. So they'll set like business goals, personal goals. It could be exercise goals. It could be recreational goals. Like I want to get a bike or go bicycling. I want to lift weights. I want to whatever. It could be I want to fix up my pickup truck. I want to start building a barn. I want to save money towards my house. Like it could be big or small.
Yeah. And one of their goals was to do $100,000 worth of business their first year. And they've already contracted to do that much work, but once within the next couple of weeks, they will have already done that. And that's the power of a written goal, and less than 3% will ever do it. And then even less than that will even track it. But what I've learned is that once you write it down, whether it's the power of attention, whether it's just putting your mind to it or whatever, once you write it down, that's basically all it's required. Now, if you systematically strive towards it, if you're like one of these really nerdy spreadsheet people and all that stuff, which I wish I was that guy in a way, and I'm glad I'm not in a lot of ways, but you can really go gangbusters if you want to, set these goals and then break them down into achievable components, a weekly checklist and all that stuff. It's very powerful and really good. Another, if you just want like economic education, Best Evidences by John Titus. He's on YouTube. When you want to learn about the monetary system and what a super scam it all is, John Titus and Best Evidence. Another great financial resource is the Solari Report and Catherine Austin Fitts. And there's lots of great tips there too. Really sound stuff. That's really good. Yeah, any of the, unfortunately, just in my opinion, Dave Ramsey just way too mainstream. It's all throwaway advice. It's very pragmatic. A lot of it's absolutely true and simple, but not easy. But it's just so wrong on so many levels that I just can't. Yeah, it's nothing against him. Yeah. Although, there's stuff with him. But anyway.
But I think that the general idea is just discipleship. And so the finances and how they manage their business and do things and make decisions on spending or saving or giving or anything like that, it's all basically on how we are teaching them to do those things. And teaching is like, learning, right? So you allow for mistakes, right? So it's like they have to grow and they have to make their own decisions. And thankfully, they've always heeded our advice on. I think because we have so little over input and we aren't overbearing with them, that they do very much respect our input when we give it as far as their business.
I think another thing that was very different with my parents and that older generation, and I'm not saying that this was a bad thing, but everything was very private, and like I didn't know we were really poor until I was older, but we were very poor. Relatively speaking. I always had food to eat. I always had clothes to wear. A lot of times it was from Goodwill and whatnot, and Bobos and everything else. So I wasn't a fashion plate or anything.
Nobody was.
And but yes, predominantly few people were, and we lived in a very poor area and all that stuff. And it's a great place to be from, where I'm from. But all that being said, we are very, and I'm not recommending this. This is for our family dynamic, but we're really open about our finances with the kids, and we talk a lot about it, just like when we're making plans, because it fits hand in glove with the living legacy that we're building for and with our children. And that's the question we get all the time, like, well, how do you get buy-in? Like, how, oh, my kids just want to sit inside and play video games and all these different things, and how do I proactively get them involved in all this thing? And I think a major way to do it is, like, you have to do everything together. And money's kind of like a big deal. It greases the skids. It makes the world go round. And you got to do that all together too, when we're buying a vehicle, like, we're all buying a vehicle.
Yeah.
And
we've been talking about that. Just even, the boys just bought another vehicle. They bought 2 vehicles this year. They sold 3 vehicles this year. And we talked about all those decisions and helped them through navigating that. And then we are in the process right now. We always drive used vehicles. We don't drive brand new vehicles ever. But
and that's okay. This is a great point. This vehicle thing. So Matt inherited my business truck, and he maintained it and fixed it up and did all that kind of cool stuff. Then James found a deal on a truck, and we had to drive, and it was a youngin that had the truck, and he drove it. He drove the wheels off of it and didn't take care of it. And we got it for a pretty good price, but then James sunk a lot of money into it, more than he paid for it, to get it running properly, and it never really ran right, and all this stuff. But what happened is
they fixed up both vehicles and made them really, really nice. The interior, the exterior, they repainted them, redid everything in those trucks.
So they did all this, and you're like, oh, well, this is a difficult learning experience. You buy this truck for $4,000, you invest another $4 or $5,000 into it. It's never really what you want it to be. And now you're going to sell it. But the beauty of all of it is the deal they found on their new truck. After they ended up selling both of their trucks and their cattle trailer, basically cost them $5,000, and their carrying costs and everything. It really worked out very well. It ended up costing them a very minimal amount of money, and there was so much learning experience all the way, all the work and all the maintenance that they did on the trucks and all the different things they learned about buying trucks and what to buy and what not to buy and what to look at and who to use to repair stuff and who not to use. And so much was learned in that whole process. And then at the same time, they come out the other end with a much lower mileage, higher fuel economy, and just an overall generally better truck that fit their needs better. And it was all part of that learning process. Now, you could have been back when James bought this truck and it was kind of a beater and it was beat up, and oh yeah, this was a really bad deal and a bad buy, and then you sunk all this money into it. But it was a great learning process, and for the value of what was learned, no dollars were lost. And then they came out the other side here and in a much better financial position, and a much better general position as far as vehicles and their fleet that they are accumulating.
And James also learned how to work on vehicles. He really got really good, and the other boys worked with him to just mechanically. He taught himself a lot on vehicles. So that's really cool too. That all transfers over, all those skills. I forget where we were going, what we were saying. So, when we're raising leaders for the next generation, we're raising young men that are going to be able to competently lead their families and, Lord willing, make an impact for Christ in their communities and locally. We're raising leaders. So we're not just, our goal isn't just to spit out these baseline type children. And also for our daughter, we're raising a daughter that is going to be able to teach her children. The level to which she's educated is the level to which our grandchildren will be educated.
Yeah, and she's going to be the wife of a leader. She's going to marry a man that can take care of her, or he's not going to get her. And she is going to support him and help him lead their family to be a success, as successful as whatever you can be in this post-modern, post-dystopian nightmare 1984, whatever's happening here, but we're just pressing on. And
they're definitely in the minority for sure. The children that we're raising, and I know y'all are attempting to raise your children the same way. These are exemplary people that you're trying to raise up, that would glorify the Lord and that would be able to run their homes well and just do all things well, and surpass us in excellence, like in how they do everything, in serving their community, in living for the Lord, all of those things. And I think the tagline I've heard, like in Christian circles, like on YouTube, it'll say like a high value. I'm looking for a high value woman or a high value man. How do you find a high value man or a high value woman? Not meaning monetarily, but meaning a high quality person that's going to be able to raise that next generation. So that's what we're meaning when we're saying all of these things.
Well, yeah, people know the price of everything and the value of nothing.
Mhm.
And there's such a tremendous value. It's just like people that don't or can't appreciate, a woman that stays at home and does all the things to create the next generation and to train and to raise them and rear them. And in lieu of that, they they trade all of that for a career in a man's world, and then they complain that they don't get paid as much as a man and all these different things. And it's like so foolish when their value is so much higher than that.
Mhm.
And what they could be doing for society is
Mhm.
10,000 fold more valuable than
Mhm.
that in a area that they were created to fulfill.
Mhm.
And and this is postmodern
Mhm.
deconstructionism at its finest, and this fourth wave feminism and all these different
Mhm.
things. And that also includes all these effeminate men that cowtail and all this other stuff and up speak and up talk and do all of this, like, and all these scrawny guys that need to eat a steak. This is all it's all part and parcel, and and that affects your testosterone levels, and women in the workforce. It affects their estrogen level. It affects both reproductive value and hormones and all these different
Mhm.
things. And it is a downward spiral, and it's done by design.
Mhm.
Uh, at the forefront, obviously Satan, but then all the social planners that love to walk in lockstep with
Mhm.
Satan's plan. And they're like, "Oh, hey, Satan, did you ever think of this?" And
Mhm.
he was like, "Yeah, I did. I actually gave you the idea." But anyway.
Absolutely. And I mean, when a man and a wife come together in marriage, it is the foundation for society. That is the foundation for it, and especially with the Lord. And women, our strengths are relationships. Ideally, for a woman, if we play to our strength is in innately in us is in nurturing, caring for relationships, no matter how we do that. If we're blessed with our own biological children, that comes naturally to most God-fearing women, is to nurture and raise up those children. And if you're not blessed with your own children, then there's still ways that women can pour into relationships within their family or communities that they can. We are just programmed in our brains for relationships, and if we play to those strengths and we build those relationships, um, the the payment for that, if you want to say, in the future, is how well we invested in those relationships. We will get paid back in our future generations. So how much I have success in building the relationships with my children is a large part, well, of course, by the mercy of God, but a large part of that is going to be determine what my relationships are like with my grandchildren. So I take it very seriously. I put relationship first, even over discipline in my house. I'm first priority concerned with the relationship. I want to have great relationships with my children and my husband.
Thanks.
So,
And so far, so good.
oh, good.
No,
So,
I'm talking about the kids.
oh, wait,
Joking.
well, you're still here.
Yeah, I'm still here.
I didn't know.
Forever, baby.
Did you want to speak to
Never going anywhere.
the man or the husband's father's role in raising these children? You touched on video games.
Yeah, the role is you have to be the patriarchal leader. And I just like saying patriarchy, and toxic masculinity and all these things. You have to be all those things. And that is why the mainstream, lamestream, fourth wave, socialistic commies, that's why they want to attack that. They want to malign that, because that is what is required to. You can't make a country great without a great community. You can't make community great without great families.
Mhm.
You can't make a church great, an assembly. You can't make an assembly or a church great without great families. And not that any one person is of more of value than another, right? In the sight of God, but in the sight of this temporal world that we live in, there are people of greater value. And the reason people are of greater value is because they bring value. You don't bring your problems to the marketplace. You bring your solutions. You bring your value. You don't bring your problems to your church and your community, and look, there is a time and a place for all that. And that is part of community, and you are to bear one another's burdens. But I don't know if you've experienced this or not, but there are a lot of Eeyores out there, and there's a lot of these Johnny Rain Clouds. Like, I don't know if you remember Peanuts and the guy that always had the that wasn't Linus, was it? That always had the rain cloud over his head. But I mean, there are people that live in that world.
I think you're thinking of Christopher Robin, right? Tut tut, looks like rain.
Is that what it was? I thought it was somebody in the Peanuts that always had, it was always raining on them and lightning, right?
Maybe so.
But, same thing with Eeyore. Woe is me.
Yes. Yes.
And there's so much of that. One, as a father, you cannot, that doesn't work ever, ever. We're marching into battle. Every day's a battle. Spiritually, every day's a battle. You got to put your armor on. You got to suit up. You got to suck it up. You got to go to work. Maybe you got one arm. Maybe you got two arms. Maybe you've taken some hits in battle, and you've got some. You can't be a casualty. You got to keep marching forward, and you definitely need a nice pair of loose fitting breeches. You know what I mean? And you got to put your pants on, and you got to wear the pants, and you got to do all the things, and you got to be the man, and you have to be the example. And, I'm going to quote Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson was speaking with Patrick Bet-David, and he said, a strong father never raised a wife beater. He said wife beaters and women abusers were raised by their mothers, and matriarchies produce women abusers. And he is, and I didn't say it, but I 1,000% agree with him. And it's absolutely true. And it's visibly perceivable. And we could, because see, the postmodern revisionist history is, well, women were chattel and cattle, and they were possessions, and they couldn't do all of these things. Now, there's some truth about what they can and cannot do, or could and could not do. And I have a t-shirt idea, and I'm not going to go into that right now. But if you've been around here long enough, you might know about my t-shirt that I still haven't designed it yet. But anyway, but men that appreciated the value, if the man is the king, the woman is the queen of the castle, and she makes the world go round inside the home and inside the family universe. way more than the father does.
Mhm.
And the father has to support her just as much as she supports him.
Mhm.
And, but that general, greater, larger leadership of the male role model, the male patriarch, the male leader,
Mhm.
dominant, domineering, whatever kind of negative adjectives you want to put on it, it's absolutely necessary. You know, and our military leaders, successful military leaders, used to have all these attributes, and I can't even point to a war that wasn't even like a false flag bankers war or anything.
Mhm.
But the facts still remain that guys like Patton existed.
Mhm.
And, you know, these men don't exist anymore.
Right. And I think that ties into, the book that the boys and I have been reading through in the morning is Man of Steel and Velvet, and it was written in the 70s. I think early 70s is when it was published. It was probably written in the 60s, and they are these exemplary men that they are talking about, that they are very strong leaders, and they have both sides. They have that strong steel that does not bend character trait, but they also have on that flip side, in that ideal man also has that soft velvet side, that he knows how to be tender with his wife and his children and his and in his home. And when you have that perfect combination of that steel and of that velvet, you have a man who honors and cherishes his wife and provides for her and would never dishonor her position, dishonor her role in the home. Or
And you're making it that this is an excellent point. This is where this whole entire postmodern concept of women in the workforce, what it's done to men and women
Mhm.
on every level, in every facet, it's the WNBA, y'all.
Mhm.
Like, what in the world is the WNBA?
Mhm.
And why do we have this Women's Basketball Association? Well, the reason you have the Women's Basketball Association is because they cannot compete with men, right?
Mhm.
And now, see, so what happens is you start out with Women's Basketball Association, and what that evolves into is men competing in women's sports, men saying, "Oh, I think I'm a woman, and thankfully I can dominate women's sports, and I'm such a loser as a man, and I am so effeminate, and I'm such a loser, and I can't compete. I'm going to
Mhm.
pretend to be a woman so I can dominate women." And
Mhm.
whether you want to realize it or believe it or not, so much of this competitiveness in the workforce has
Mhm.
seeped into the home.
Mhm.
And you will look at your spouse as like, well, I did all this today, so now you got to do this. And there is literally like this competition, like, do you realize what I do all day? You know,
Mhm.
and it creates this competitive environment.
Mhm.
And you absolutely, if you were at one point in time, we're both working outside the home, you absolutely had this mindset.
Sure.
If you're honest, you know, we had the mindset.
Mhm.
And even after you conform to your created biblical roles, you
Yes.
you can still maintain that mindset.
Sure.
And it is counterproductive to everything that you're trying to do.
It will destroy your
Yeah.
marriage, or at least give you a subpar relationship, I would say, at best. And, it's really that equality mindset. And when you are comparing, there's nothing to compare about what your husband does during the day or what you do during the day. To compare those two things it doesn't even make any sense.
Well, it's different world. Like I'm supposed to kick butt and take names and make money
Mhm.
and, you know, and lead and be strong and
Mhm.
suck it up and get hurt and like not show it
Mhm.
and not sleep and get up anyway and
Right.
go and do all the things. and that's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. And it's a totally different thing. All the different things that my wife's supposed to do.
Right.
She's supposed to do all the complementary things to that so that I can do that.
Right. And if I'm functioning in my feminine role at home, then, and I'm doing all of those things, then my other job is that when you come home from the world and working out in the world, that I can be compassionate. I can be a soft place to land for you, that you can come home and you can tell me all the different things that have happened, and I can be rested in my mind and paying attention to you, and I can be sympathetic to you because you did what I didn't have to do that day. And you can in turn be sympathetic to me because, in years past, maybe I was up all night long nursing a baby. And then maybe I did deal with little toddlers that were sick all day, or had a hard day with homeschooling and toddlers and nursing a baby, or whatever, meal preparation, trying to clean the house. Like, you've always been so compassionate and just so lenient towards me that, you've never been like this rigid husband. I've always said that I had it so easy, that when you came home, I would say, I'm so sorry. The house isn't the way that it's supposed to be, and you said, I'm not worried about that. That's not the main thing, but also on good days and normally my goal is to train the little ones that daddy's coming home, in the next couple hours. So I make sure that dinner is ready, that let's pick up the house, get the floor ready for vacuuming for mama. Like, I learned that from my one grandmother, that she instilled that in me, that when my grandfather was on his way home, she would say, okay, let's get the house ready. He's almost home. We want to vacuum. We want to clean up, So on those normal days, you have the outside of the box days, right? You have the weeks where everybody's sick and whatever. But on those normal days, the dishes are in the dishwasher or they're cleaned. There's order to the home. I'm creating a peaceful environment in the home. And that's a huge role. If you want to train daughters to be exemplary, high value daughters, you're training them to order and manage the home and to create an environment with a woman's touch that only a woman can do, that can make that home a restful place.
So NC says, do you think the prevalence of women in the workplace also is why there's all this touchy-feely DEI stuff? I think women in the workforce and in the district of criminals, at the critter capital in Washington, D.C., is exclusively why all of this stuff. And before everybody gets the claws out, yeah, it is because all these effeminate men don't want to do it. But just because effeminate, spineless men don't want to do it doesn't mean if women take their place that it's going to be any better, because it's not. And that's my point. And I'm like, and my point is, if women are doing what the men are supposed to do, who's doing what the women are supposed to do?
Right.
Because you can't do it both. Look around you. Case in point, it's a case study. Look around you.
Right. If we play to our strengths and the order that God created and the way that God designed our brains to function as women, and we have a husband who is willing to provide for us, Lord willing, that would be the case. If we are in that position that we can make sacrifices, because it's a huge sacrifice to stay home and to raise up children, or not raise up children, just to stay home.
I used to say it was a sacrifice. It is the most return on investment that you could ever possibly make. It's not a sacrifice. It is an absolute sacrificial investment that pays innumerable exponential dividends.
Absolutely.
That you cannot put a number on.
I would agree. 100%. I agree.
But I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
you can keep.
It's good.
You were riffing good. I liked it.
No, you're good. You're good.
But yeah, and this is why I always go back to postmodern deconstructionism, because we can't rebuild these things the way they were designed to be unless we start at the beginning. And in the beginning, God created them male and female. Male and female created he them, right? And so we have to go back to that. And until we recognize and realize that, but once we do, we don't have to worry about, well, what's a woman? You don't even, that's not even a question, because we're not postmodernly deconstructed, and we're not changing all the definitions. And this is why, this is why you have to reject all the Frankfurt School stuff. You can't reject postmodern deconstructionism and then be cool with all of the philosophies and the concepts. You can't reject critical race theory and not reject there. And there are people that do this, like Dr. White and all this stuff. They want to reject and they want to hammer on, critical race theory, but they won't destroy all the other critical theories in the Frankfurt School and the Academy that created all of this question. And yea, hath God said stuff that to deconstruct this, to change all the definitions and to change all the words.
And I think that's really important. I think that plays into it, is that when we're training our children, you are pouring all of these things into them, right? So these are conversations that they have heard us have throughout the years, right? We're talking about doctrine. We're talking about our deep core beliefs and how we view the world, our worldview. We're making sure that what we put before our eyes is things that we're okay with them duplicating. So even when they're really little, all the way up through Matt's 19 now, we've never let them just watch stuff that is just idle or silliness or worldly.
Yeah, dude, perfect. Kill me. I mean, now.
if you want your children to dress exemplary and behave exemplary and understand their world at a higher level, then what they see,
not be an idiot,
needs to be,
or an idiot.
Right. What they see is really, really important. So we let them have some freedom in things that they watch for pleasure, but it's always things that are going to build them up. And that means a lot of stuff is really, really old stuff. But like, I'd rather that be things that they are, wow, that's how a man treats a woman. Wow, that's the engagement level. Wow, that man's a real man's man. Okay, that's what I want to duplicate. And I do that as a mom and a wife. The YouTube channels that I choose are things that are going to build me up in those roles as a wife and a mother. So that's something that we're always doing as well. And we do it from the time that they're really, really little. We don't let them consume things that are going to create bad habits, bad behaviors.
And this is what's fascinating, because both sides get shirked, because the other thing that we don't let them consume is junk, as far as what they put in their body. And there are a lot of people that are really keen on organic crunchy granola and all this stuff, and they'll eat all healthy, and they'll let their kids pollute their mind with these video games and all this trash and all of this it was like mindless retardation. And it is like Idiocracy. And I've never seen Idiocracy, but we are living in 1984 Idiocracy.
But we do let them watch things that would like promote manliness, like, things that would be, I don't know, you watch some different guy stuff that's just like weightlifting, arm wrestling,
stuff that
like, things that just promotes men being men, and it's, as long as it's clean and there's no foul language.
Disgusting.
Also, like political things, they enjoy getting news and watching that, and they're up on all the things going on in the world, current events.
Yeah, and I really think, and it's been neat because I've always been into these things, and there are people that have painted, in the scriptures, in the Bible, it talks about debate, deceit, malignity, and some people will malign debate, and they'll just say, oh, it's just endless debate. Personally, I have found so much value in listening to people debate theological topics or philosophical or political ideas, I've learned so much, because when somebody says, well, I believe this and here's why, and then somebody else says like, well, no, you're wrong because of this. And then they're like, oh, wait a minute. He's making some really good points. I never thought about that, and it promotes thought and reason, logic, rhetoric. I mean, these were the things that built men, the trivium and the quadrivium, who, what, when, where, how, and why, and these questions. And it is very good to question, and it's good to hear other people question, not in a postmodern deconstructive way. And, well, that's your truth. And how do we, there's no such thing as objective truth, but in a real substantial way, where these are my factual reasons for why I believe this. These are my scripture reasons. Here's my, here are the scriptures that support this, or whatever. And I find a tremendous amount of value in that, in a large part because you're not just in an echo chamber, right? Sure. I mean, we've been so fractionalized and tribalized and compartmentalized that a lot of it's exclusively in this left-right paradigm. It's like, and if the Republican Party was real, and if Lincoln wasn't the first Republican, I would be a dyed-in-the-wool Republican. But Lincoln was a total fascist, terrible, and he's got this gigantic fascist monument in the District of Criminals, and so that people can worship Lincoln. And you can read all about the fasces that are embedded in the Lincoln Memorial and the Lincoln Monument, and they will tell you about what an awesome fascist he was. And that's why the demon craps and the Republicards, that's why they both love him. They both point to him. And this is all part of just learning and developing your own convictions and being your own man and having your own ideas, and then being able to communicate back and forth with other men and be able to explain yourself. You only know something to the level at which you can explain it.
Yes.
And then as soon as somebody says, oh, well, yeah, but what about this? And if you don't have any experience in talking out your ideas and debating, for lack of a better word, how are you, that part of leadership? Okay. Part of leadership is convincing everybody you're right. Okay. Part of being a good leader is like, look, I know y'all want to do this. This is what we're going to do. And here's why. Okay. And part of that process, and then real leadership is when everybody's like, you're wrong. And you're like, too bad. This is what we're doing anyway. Now that's real leadership. But majorly, you want your leadership to be, everybody disagrees. Here's what we're going to do. Here's why. Here's all the reasons why. And, well, you know what, Dad, now that you said that, I get it. I know why that you think that's the right thing to do. That sounds right. And, we follow you, and you take the heat, you take the hit, you're the tip of the spear. You're the first point of contact. It's all, you're going to be held accountable, and this is why men got to like grow up and like really understand.
Yes. And I think that the balance to that is that as you lead, real submission is that you've always proven yourself trustworthy. And so that I feel safe in trusting your leadership decisions, even if I disagree, or if one of the older children might disagree with a leadership decision, we still have that baseline of trust and respect that we're going to say, okay, so I might personally disagree, but out of honoring your position as the husband, father, leader, we are still going to submit ourselves to that authority, and we're still going to follow it. And we're going to give you trust that it will work out. And if it doesn't work out, we are going to give you grace that you're a human being, and sometimes human beings make mistakes, right? And also, I would say the flip side to that too is that a good, high quality leader makes the hard decisions, but he also is intelligent enough to consider his wife and his children's input before he makes that final call, and he he deeply considers their input. I would say that's a good leader. And you can see, I mean, even like you were saying, military leaders, those excellent men that really led well, they still had compassion for their people that were serving under them, and kind of kept their finger on the pulse of that as well, and took that into consideration.
And Laura's asking a great question. What sources do you allow your children to get current events and news from? Now, this is very interesting because, there used to be the Drudge Report, and he was a Mo, and all of the terrible homo advertising on there and all that stuff,
Well,
right?
you
And
have
it
some
just,
different podcasts.
yeah,
That you
it just
listen
became
to.
so. And then the same thing is happening right now with the Gateway Pundit, and just all of this terrible marketing and advertising where you're just like, I don't even want to go there. It's disgusting. I think a great one that has kind of stood the test of time is the Corbett Report and James Corbett. He's great. And it's fascinating. I mean, I don't think he's a Christian. You don't know. He doesn't let you know. If not, I know he went to Trinity and different things. But all of his stuff is very matter of fact. It's very clean. There's never any trash on there. I greatly appreciate it. Nick Freitas, I think, is a really good source. He's definitely in the right left paradigm a little more than I would like, but I think we're all going to come out of that. I think, I think with whatever happens, if anything, well, a whole lot of stuff's going to happen this year, y'all, and it'll be interesting. And they definitely are trying to reconstruct after they've deconstructed the right left paradigm, and we'll see how it all pans out. It will be interesting, but yeah, that is a very fine line, and that's a great question. And that's a moving target.
And I know there's a couple of YouTube channels that they watch, but I wouldn't want to say them and give them a stamp of approval, because we pick and choose which videos, and even
you always have to actively monitor it.
Yes. So yeah, and the screen is right in our living room in plain sight. We don't have it like somewhere hidden or anything like that. But there's even things that our older sons, they might think that a news video might be okay, and then they start to watch it and it's like, oh, that's trash. Like, from that same like YouTube channel. So those same YouTube channels can put out good, or they can just be putting out like trash. Like, we don't let them just consume trash. Like, if it's just like, this is what's going on TikTok, no, we're not going to indulge in that. Like, I could care less,
Yeah, and just some people, they'll for the sake of exposing something, they will defile you. And there's just certain things that
the couple that's usually in our feed, it's Redacted
is usually pretty good.
They're pretty good. Yeah. So
other than their titles, they always, and they block it out. But
but I'm not going to say like every video, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just on a case by case basis. Lorraine wants us to go carnivore. She said we would love it.
Lorraine, Saturday was our carniversary.
Yay!
So we have been carnivore for 1 year, and we are loving it, and I highly recommend it. So
highly recommend it.
I concur with your assessment.
Yes. Simplified life for us, and
it's a game changer.
Healed a lot of things.
Yeah, it's the real game changer, not the vegan propaganda game changer, but the real game changer.
Yep.
Eat a cow.
I think Valerie was saying too that they include their children in on like going and evaluating rental properties and making investment decisions and all of that, and maybe, I don't know if you do all that as a as a family, you
Yeah, that's what she
renovate.
said. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I really love that. And then I guess maybe prior, you had your own salon and the children were right there with you, helping you manage that, do all of the things. I mean, that's just a family business.
Yep.
And that's great. We're all about family business.
Yep.
I think that's fantastic.
Well, we've been on here an hour, Mama.
We did. I hope we gave you
We
all
started
some
extra late
ideas. You know, I think that in order to, we talked about it's not really a sacrifice, but when you're serving the Lord, there and you're making decisions to do certain things to serve the Lord, whether it's raising children or keeping a home or whatever it is, it will require sacrificing.
Everything has a cost.
Something
Yeah.
else, you know, so you're not going to be able to do all of the sports games and do something else. Like you can't do everything. So I think a lot of how we've parented is like a very minimalist approach. Like, let's just redact it down to these simple, basic things that we keep as high priorities in our life, like being home as a family, working as a family, and all of these things, creating a home business, just all of these things that are highly important to us, going on vacations together. Like, we haven't been out on a date together in, I don't know, a long time, y'all, a very, very long time, because we prioritize when we want to do something, we do it as a family. So our date is like when the kids go to bed, that's our date night.
Yeah.
And that it will require something of you to serve the Lord. You can't do 6 hours of video games a night.
Right. And there's always a cost, so there's a cost to do what is right, what is necessary, what you were designed to and created to do. And there is a cost to not do
Absolutely.
that. So if you look around, and you look at this postmodern dystopia we're living in, where people don't know what gender they are and they have Kool-Aid colored hair and all this stuff, that is the price that you pay for neglecting truth.
Danielle wants to know, did we answer her question yet? I don't.
She wants to be a mother, and
I'm currently 33.
33. And what do you suggest that she gets started with to prepare herself for motherhood?
I would say, Danielle, that the best education that anybody can get these days is probably right on YouTube, and find some really great role models that you can, well, use discretion, Danielle, of course, but find some godly women that are documenting what they're doing in interesting, beautiful way for you.
What tradcons?
Something that resonates with you, and you're saying, I want to be that kind of mom. I want to be that kind of wife. And it might change from year to year or from month to month. You might say, oh, I watched her and now I'm on to something else. You outgrew that, right? But start really diving deep into being feminine. That'll help. That'll help a whole lot.
Helps a lot.
Explore that.
Men really love feminine women.
Yes. Be drastically
the
different.
Man that you want to have a child with, you don't want him to want to marry a dudette.
He doesn't want to marry a dudette. So chase the feminine thing, hone those skills, and find mom channels, wife channels. Start developing all of those skills. There's so much vastness in the skill set that you could have for when you do find a husband or do start having children. And I just think that YouTube, if you use discretion with it and you are very picky about your choices, there's no better education at this point than that.
And that's sad.
Well, but it's the way that
it is the way it is, though. You're right. You're absolutely right. It's, I won't go on a
Yeah.
rabbit trail.
But like self-development, all of those things
Sure,
you can really,
1,000,000%.
really work on. And of course, all of the skills with homemaking. I mean, you can get into sewing, cooking from scratch, just home management, anything, but find something that you're really going to enjoy. And
And a tremendous resource for your boys for entrepreneurism, entrepreneurship. And I'm pretty sure he has a YouTube channel. He is deceased, Jim Rohn, Rohn. But Jim Rohn is an absolute hero and mentor of mine. I've never met him. Great man. I appreciate 99% of everything he's ever said, and very impactful. I wanted to meet him before he died. Didn't happen though. But I really appreciate Jim Rohn. And yeah, he does have a YouTube channel,
yes.
and somebody's actively posting his stuff, and it is excellent. So,
and I think that mother is the best career that you could ever choose, Danielle. I think
yeah,
you're onto
that's true.
something good there.
All right, y'all. Well, with that being said, remember, stay fearless, my friends.
Bye, y'all.